Maple Nation Podcast, episode 355. Maple Nation January News.
Welcome, citizens of Maple Nation. For the next 30 minutes, sit back and enjoy.
Maple Nation Podcast is sponsored by GameToppersLLC.com. Go to their website, check out their amazing product. We are a big fan of the Watsons here at our headquarters, and Andy is a big fan of the Mycroft in his domicile.
Nathan, you got a new mat for yours.
I did. My daughter bought me a nice mat for Christmas, which was super awesome of her. Ashley has always done really good at getting really thoughtful gifts of something that people want. So it's the Viking mat, which has a very dark blue, rich color to it. You have the island terrain that goes kind of around the outskirts of the...
And there's pillaging and fires going and those poor villagers.
On their website, and this is actually, I believe, their most popular game mat. Right?
Oh, I believe it. It's so vibrant.
Check out their website. They got toppers, they got game mats, and they're just sneaking awesome. GameToppersLLC.com.
Welcome to Maple Nation. We are your hosts. I am Dave Holliday.
I'm Logan Howard.
I am Andy Holliday.
And I am Nathan Howard.
So this week we're talking about January news, looking towards 2021, and how the year's going for us so far.
Our favorite section where we talk about Maple Nation highlights, talking about games that we've played recently or something that has happened over the last month that's got us excited in game-wise. We talked last week about abstract games, and we mentioned in there that we had but had not quite played New York Zoo and Nova Luna. And now that we've played, what do you guys think of those two games? I really liked them.
I did too. Had more fun with New York Zoo, but that may be because I won that game. I'm not sure.
Took these both home. These were games that were more focused to play with my wife. In fact, just yesterday we played 4 games. Played 2 games of Nova Luna, and she really liked that. And then we played a game of New York Zoo, which was also a hit for her. In fact, when we were done playing that later, as we were walking by and I was still sitting there, she was like, I really like that game. For me, those games were huge winners. Have something to play at home. I'm looking forward to multiple plays of those with her and with you guys too.
So my biggest highlight for the month so far is that Nathan's goals were completed so we can play new games again.
We've set new goals. I'm bullying you in your new gaming goals.
But see, they don't feel like I'm being bullied until about October-ish. Because it's just normal game night, because that's just like how it goes, right? But about October-ish, when it feels more bullying. That's like the 4th game of Space Basin that night, you're like, ugh, again.
When gaming becomes a chore.
When gaming becomes a chore, yeah. So that's what I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that I'm going to try to spread out those games throughout each month. And hopefully we'll be able to get those in so they're more spread out. However, we're halfway through January now, and I haven't played a single one that's on the 10 for 10 yet, so...
Oh, it's cool. I'm going to bring Nemesis next week.
That's still not on the 10 for 10. That's the 10 by 1.
I scribbled it in there.
Well, it's not in my app. And speaking of apps, something was really cool is, Dave, I sponsored you to get the app.
Uh-huh. Adrian said okay.
Adrian approved it. How is it going so far tracking games?
Good. I remember to do it almost every time.
Except when he doesn't.
I have had a couple of times I've had to go back in and a couple of days later go, oh, I don't think I added that one, and I go in and make up for it. But it's really cool because I get to see how many games I'm playing, which has been nice. Also, as we're preparing for this, I'm trying to remember, which is something I don't do, trying to remember the games that I played and some of my highlights. Wait a minute. I can check and see what games I played.
For me, that is the biggest benefit.
Yeah.
Is to go back, like when we were talking about highlights of 2020 and games that we played in that episode, our mind's just focused on what we've recently played. And there's games that you play in January 2020 and you thought, oh, this game is great, really love this game. And then where we start to expand different games that we play, some of those games that we loved in January we forget about. They get put on the shelf. But I love the app. You can go back and you can look and remember, and you're like, oh yeah.
I'm like such more free spirit when it comes to that stuff though, because even if I don't remember that I played Isle of Cats last February, I still had fun playing it last February, and if I don't remember it clearly, it's going to be a new game when I play it next year.
No, you're exactly right. However, if you're ever on a podcast and you want to reflect on something you've played in the past, it gives you a little bit more opportunity to go, oh yeah, I've played that.
So
How
is
often
this
you
the
played it?
Scorpion and the Toad thing where you give me right across the river because you keep track of all the games and I just do whatever I want and kill you at the end anyway?
I think I'm more like the Scorpion and you're the Toad. You're just along for the free ride.
So something else that the app I've enjoyed about it is I can see, you know what, I've played a lot of games. Just in the last 30 days, I've played 32 games.
Wow, you've played more
And
games than I have.
It's kind of a double-edged sword, though. So I'm looking at that and I'm going, okay, I've done quite a bit. But then I'm also worried about when my wife sees it and sees how many games I've played.
I'm only up to 19 plays so far this year, so I got
No,
some
not
catching
this year.
up.
30 days. Last 30
Oh,
days.
the last 30 days. Okay. I might have you beat there then. Only 19 games so far this year. Also, speaking of apps, Andy, you downloaded the app. How's it going for you?
I did. I am about half of number of plays that you have. I'm at 10. But yeah, it's been good. Having fun adding games. I've played a lot of new games this year. That may be why I haven't played as many games, is because I've spent a fair bit of time reading rules. Yeah, it's going well.
It's great because you can actually add your games into your library, tracks it onto the BGG site, which is also a big benefit. So going back to highlights of games we've played, my wife and I did start Pandemic Legacy Season 0. We've only played the prelude game to it so far. Each Pandemic game has differences. So far, there's some drastic differences.
I just have a question on that. Time-wise, where does it fit in? Does it fit before Season 1?
Yes.
Because the 0, and so I'm assuming.
Centered in the 60s during the Cold War, so you have...
Oh, really? I would have figured they'd gone with the Spanish influenza or something.
There's a blurb that says this is not based on actual events, which is kind of funny that they had to throw a disclaimer on their game.
Because I'm pretty sure they had to add a sticker this year.
You know, and I'm actually sure that's probably led a lot to it. Right?
Because they did research for it, because it's the same thing like you watch the movie Contagion, and a lot of that movie, because it's so well researched, it's like, wait a second, how long ago did they make this movie?
Pandemic Season 0 is focusing on the conflict between the Allied, and then you have the Soviets, and then you have those that are neutral, that are neither aligned with the Soviets or the Allies. The movement is different. If you want to travel to another Allied city, all you have to do is show your Allied card. You don't have to discard it, and you can travel to that city. If you wanted to travel to a neutral, you show and discard that card. You can travel to that neutral city. With the Soviet cities, you can't travel into those Soviet cities. You're dealing with spies. There's no infection. There's no infection cubes that are put on the board. You have Soviet spies that are put on the board like the infection cubes. If they ever outbreak, there's no outbreak. There's an incident. You don't spread those agents anywhere. You just put an incident marker on the location. Instead of that disease spreading to neighboring cities, you'll have an incident that will happen in that city. You will take the bottom card from the threat deck, which is the outbreak deck. On that card, instead of placing any agents on that city, there's a little line on there that reads, when there's an incident. This could do something like remove a safe house from Asia or Africa. And if you don't have one there, then that's great. You don't have to lose anything. But if you have a safe house there, then you're going to lose it. You don't have to go around and try to fight cubes or cure diseases. You gather a set of 5 cards, either Allied, neutral, or Soviet, and then you will form kind of a wet works team. On your turn, you'll do your 4 actions, and then after you do your 4 actions, there's a mop-up phase. And so wherever your team is, if there's agents in that city, your team will eliminate all the agents that are in that city. Interesting how that works out. I think it's really cool. I'm actually really excited about playing this more.
Mm-hmm.
It's different, right? It's not the same cardboard cutout of Pandemic. There's drastic differences between Pandemic Season 1 and Season 2, which the 4 of us have started Season 2 now that we finished Season 1. There's the whole exploration of the world in Season 2. And Season 0 is all dealing with these spies and agents, and there's far more cities that are on the board in Season 0. The objectives that you're doing are completely different. You're either trying to find a target in a specific city, or you're trying to find a target in a specific region. If you're looking for somebody or something in a region, then you have to eliminate those cities. You eliminate that by drawing cards into players' hands. Prologue game, you're trying to find information that is in Europe. And as you draw cards that are in Europe, you've eliminated that, right? Because you have the card in your hand. And there's 11 Europe cards. You shuffle those up at the beginning of the game, draw one out, hidden from the players. That's the city that you need to track down. The other 10 cards that are in the player deck, you're going to go through and find those cards. Towards the end of the game, when the player deck starts to run out and you haven't eliminated those cities, the only thing that you can do now is get your teams in those remaining cities. If you can cover the remaining cities and then you attempt to complete that objective, you'll flip the city over that's under the objective and see if you have a team in that city. If you guess correctly and you have a team in that city, then you've completed that objective and you go to a scenario book and read the complete section. Or if you happen to guess incorrectly and you do not have a team in that city, then you failed that objective, and then you'll go to the scenario book and read a failed option. I'm really excited. There's a whole new level of the game that has just really got me excited. Pandemic Season 0 is going to live up to all my expectations. When we finish Season 2, I think you guys will be just as excited to play Season 0 as I am.
That's interesting that they took a twist on that really isn't even related to disease.
Well, it is still related to disease,
It is
right?
related to disease still.
Yeah,
Okay.
the Soviets are creating this
Okay.
Medusa disease, and so you're just trying to track down the information, but you're not...
You're not overtly
Disease.
fighting a disease.
Right, yeah.
At least
It's,
at this
it's
point.
not Pandemic Legacy Season 1 was Pandemic.
Based
Very
on-
much a pandemic game. So Season 2, they made it more exploration and different way to look at the game. And which I think is great. That's what they should do. Instead of just having the 80-second version of Ticket to Ride, that's just the exact same game, just with different cities or something like that. Like, this is what they should be doing.
There are several different Pandemic versions out there. Over the holidays, I picked up Pandemic Hot Zone North America, Pandemic Rapid Response. And I'm expecting these games to be very different from generic Pandemic. And they're going to be different from Pandemic Legacy Season 1, 2, or 0. I'm just hoping that Pandemic Legacy Season 0 is not the final one. Thoroughly enjoyed my experience playing Pandemic Legacy. My wife is doing her best to try to preserve the game so we can play it again. And think once we get through the first game, she'll realize that that's just not possible. I'm super excited for this.
I get the concept of she wants to preserve it to try it again, but the amount of joy that you get from that Legacy game, especially when it's done well, like Pandemic is, it's well worth its money.
Yeah, no, I totally get her desire to do that too. And a lot of people are really turned off with that. But exactly to that point, Logan, for me personally, the experience that I have going through and destroying that game far outweighs just playing the game.
Well, not only that, you think about it, those who are in the hobby of board gaming, how many games do you really get to the table 10 to 20 times?
Very good. Yep.
Well,
or is
10
it just sitting on your shelf? You're getting that experience. Yeah, it's a legacy game. You're going to essentially it's a throwaway game by the time you're done. But every single time you play it is a little bit different. And just if it's a well-done legacy game, you want to play it again. And it's not going to be just the same game over and over and over again like any other game that you probably won't get to the table that many times.
I think you nailed it right on the head. If you compare it to a game that isn't that way, right? For those people who are afraid, like me, of destroying it and throwing it away when you're done, wanting to preserve it. When you compare that legacy game to the other games, I think you're exactly right. We played Season 1, I think 14 times. That was how long it took us to get through the whole thing. There are not very many games that get 14 plays in our gaming.
Much less in a short period of time, but sometimes ever.
Right. Most of them ever. There are a few that will, over 10 years, hit the table that many times.
I've been tracking games for just over 3 years. I can look at that and I can compare. Okay, I've played Werewords 67 times. That's a huge amount of times to play with a game.
And that's also a game that doesn't last very long.
Right, a very short game. Space Base is my second most played game with 43 times.
I think all of those were in December of last year.
They could have been. They could have been. And number 3 is also 43 plays of Jump Drive, which Logan will also attest to playing way too much. But fourth is Gloomhaven. The four of us have played, and I had played 30 plus games prior to that. That's a longer game, and to have played Gloomhaven 41 times. Number 7 on my list is Pandemic Legacy Season 1. I've played that game a total of 29 times. To have only played it 29 times and to have that game, my measure of excitement for that game over Werewords, Space Base, Jump Drive, I'll even say Gloomhaven, which I thoroughly enjoyed Gloomhaven. To have only played that game 29 times and to have the enjoyment to not only have played that game once, but twice, to play that game 3 times and to have such an amazing experience. It's a great game. And then Pandemic Season 2, I played with my wife and I played with Brent. I guess I'm going to have to reiterate that 29 plays of Season 1, I wasn't tracking games at that point. So that doesn't count my first run-through with Brent. Most of my run-through of Pandemic Legacy Season 2 was not tracked at that point. And I played that game 19 times. Kind of got distracted here, but you go to that joy for that game. I cannot talk enough about that game, as it's completely obvious.
Some of my highlights included mostly about who I got to play with. My wife and I got to play with some of our Washington friends, Michael and Katie Bishop, and that was really fun. My wife got introduced to Tapestry. Really enjoyed that quite a bit. I got to play a game that has long been on my list in Skithy, or Scythe. And that one...
The Queen's English is like the British way of talking. Like, what sort of English are you talking about?
I do my own thing.
It's more like Dave gibberish.
It's... Look at the spelling, okay?
Yeah, that's how we know you're saying it
wrong. So I was actually really excited about this game at first, but then as I read more about it, and I was like, oh, there's some area control and combat quite often is my least favorite part of a lot of games.
So we're talking Scythe still, right?
Yeah, or Skithy, yes.
Scythe, got it.
Okay. I was a little hesitant. That's actually why I haven't bought the game, is because I was really worried I wasn't going to enjoy it that much because of that. After playing it with my friends up there, it was really good. I really enjoyed it. And that did not diminish the game for me.
There are area control games that I can enjoy. I didn't feel like Scythe was... I think of area control, I think of games like Risk, where it's an attack and I'm trying to eliminate you.
Right.
And Scythe doesn't quite have that aggressive area control.
Yeah, it's very minimal. It's not a necessary part of the game.
I think it's a good game.
It was good to get to play with my friends. Actually, I've played a lot of games with Adrian lately, and that's been awesome. The other one, I don't know how to describe the game. It's certainly not my favorite game, but at least it's quick. It's called Taco vs. Burrito. It's a cute little fun game that kids can play. My 6-year-old, Briggs, that's my 6-year-old, and Jack, my 12-year-old. The 3 of us have played that a couple of times, and Briggs just keeps working us. He beats us every time, and he knows what he's doing, too. He's strategic in his card play and beats us, and it's really kind of frustrating. But it's been cool to get to play with my boys. They both love to play, and to have a game that is quick so I can play with them and not be completely bored out of my mind because it's
and not
really...
be a bad parent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's not a horrible game. The other thing that I was thinking of that's just been really good and a big highlight for me is I played a lot of new games. But most of those new games are on all of y'all's lists as well, so I'll let you guys mention them.
We finally got to bust out Folklore and play. We're actually in Story 2 now. Started Story 2 on Friday, and I've enjoyed it. It's been a lot of fun.
I've really liked it a lot. You and I, Andy, we played through with Amara, first chapter of Story 1.
Not quite even the first chapter. Almost.
Just about. And it was fun, and you know what I mean? But I was still a little bit like, I wonder how this is going to go. I wonder how this is going to go. And then we played with the 4 of us and Pritchett. We restarted, and it was really good. I really enjoyed it. And then the last time we got together, even better. I'm liking it more.
That one's been a highlight that we've just started since the new year. We also plugged through the first game of Etherfields, Dave and I did, which was a bit rough to begin with, trying to figure out the rules.
Yeah, they are not super...
I think the game is published by a Polish company, so the translation wasn't super great, but we got through it, and it's a really fun game as well.
I am super excited to get more into that one as well.
Yeah, that one is also story-based.
Mini-based.
Campaign,
yeah. I'm a sucker for campaign games.
Mm-hmm.
I think we all are.
Yeah.
And that is on my 10 for 10, so...
We're
Yeah,
going
now
to
that we
that
have the
one.
rules
We
down-
just busted it out so we can get used to it.
Yeah, we were trying to
I
learn
get
the
that
game.
for sure.
Yesterday, I played a new game with my daughter. We played Cooper Island. It was an enjoyable game. You each have your own peninsula, and you're trying to develop the lands. On that peninsula, you're drawing land tiles or hex grid, trying to develop your land. And the higher you go, the more valuable your resources are. Kind of plays very similar to Terra Mystica or Gaia Project as far as you have buildings on your player board. And when you play those buildings, it unlocks certain things on your player board. It's not quite as heavy as either of those two games, but it kind of had that feel. As you're gaining points, you have 2 ships that will go on each side of your island or your peninsula, and that's how you track your points. The game lasts for 5 rounds. Every single round you get to place an islet tile, so a little island that comes off your peninsula, and anytime your ship jumps over one of those islets, it's going to give you a special ability. It was fun. Kind of plugged through the rules a little bit to learn how to play, and looking forward to playing that one again. We got Flying Goblin for Christmas. As silly and a simple game, but it was a lot of fun.
So this is a dexterity game, and my wife loved this game when we played it on New Year's Eve.
Very fun game. You have a little catapult. The game box itself is the castle. The center tower is where the king is. He's up on his balcony. The box has dividers in it. Little rooms. You are trying to catapult your goblins into the castle. And depending on where they land, you're going to gain some sort of benefit. There's a few rooms that actually hurt you, but for the most part, you're going to gain a benefit depending on which room you go in. And if you knock the king off of his balcony and land inside the king's quarters or the king's chambers, you get a huge diamond or gem bonus. It's hilarious. It's such a great game, and it's so simple. Just fun.
After we played on New Year's Eve, the next day my wife was talking about that game again, so I had ordered it. Anytime my wife gets excited about a game, I'm like, woohoo! Then when we were starting to play Pandemic again, I really like that Goblin game. It's ordered.
I typically like to buy a couple games from the local game store every Christmas. So we went in just to peruse, and that one looked like kids would like it. Definitely a good buy.
Yeah, it's been a hit. With all the people who played it, from young to old, everybody seemed to have enjoyed it.
You've had quite the luck going into board game store and just being like, this one looks good.
That's very true. I have. It's very lucky.
Arabia, that's pretty much it, wasn't it? Was that you went in,
Well,
said
that
it
one
looked good, and they're like, oh, hey, let me show it to you.
Yeah, that one actually was a little less lucky. Jamie, the owner of a game store close to my house, he actually sat down and played it with me and just said, hey, this is a good game. He and I have a good relationship, so whenever I go in, he's talking to me about, oh, well, this is new and this is fun. And Forgotten Waters, that was just a random game I picked up. I'm a sucker for pirate games. The biggest draw was that it was up to 8 players.
Which is huge, especially for our group.
Oh, yeah. So that's why I nabbed it. My gosh, what a gem. What a
That
gem of a
game has been a riot.
Yes, it is awesome. We're going to talk about that one soon, so we're not going to go into detail on it yet.
I also picked up King Domino, which is a fun little game.
I enjoy King Domino. Queen Domino, which is...
We have that too. I just haven't played that. And we have the Giant expansion as well. We got Ex Libris for Christmas. You are building a library of books. You know, it was kind of funny. So you're in a city, right? And you're trying to fill your library up with books, and you have a specific type of volume that you yourself are trying to build a collection for, and you're going to get bonus points for that. And you want to diversify because you're going to score points for your lowest type of volume of book. And then there's banned books. Townsfolk have completely banned from you having in your library. Apparently the first town that we went in, they banned all fantastical fiction books and wanted all of these dark evil books. They wanted all the evil
The
books.
Necronomicon?
They wanted to ban all fantastical fiction books. But
Because they were just only pretending at the truth.
One of the
Yeah.
rock hard dark stuff.
it was kind of a fun one. I'll have to bring that one. It's one of those that's only 4 players. And we busted out Viscounts of the West Kingdom. That was good times.
I'm really excited to play the campaign version.
Yeah, me too. Go through Architects, Paladins, and Viscounts. That would.
Fennel came down for Christmas, and we got to play a couple games with him the other day, and that was good too. One of them was another new game called Meeple Land. Very first thoughts, seeing it being set up and him explaining it, and then again, while playing it, was wondering if it was made by the people who did Dinosaur Island. A lot of things that kind of reminded me of Dinosaur Island. It was fun. You're building an amusement park, guests that come, and you have to select certain guests and try to make sure that you can fit them in your park. And it was a good game. Again, it reminded me quite a bit of Dinosaur Island, which I loved.
Oh, and another thing I forgot to put on my list is I finally got to play Isle of Cats. I really had fun with that game. The puzzle aspect of it was a lot of fun. I wasn't sure about the theme, but you guys said it was fun. It was really, really enjoyable to play.
It's been one of, I want to say, like, most hidden gem in my mind games that we played that way. Because it's just like you said, you just hear the theme and, like, the kind of the story of it, and you're like, really? And then you sit down and play, you're like, yeah, this is pretty great.
Yeah,
I love the
very
game.
well done.
Never won it yet.
Well, it's on the 10 for 10.
Sweet.
So you'll be playing it at least 10 times
That's
this
good.
year.
I am okay with that.
We ran a little bit long on that section. Quite a few new games have entered our lives. Kickstarter's kind of dead at the first of the year, so it wasn't anything that really excited me on Kickstarter right now. There was ISS Vanguard by Awakened Realms that closed a few days back. That looked really cool. I didn't back it. I tracked that down on Late Pledge for that, but that game looked really cool. A ton of miniatures, Dave. You like those. But other than that, Kickstarters are kind of lacking. Hopefully in February we'll have some better news on that.
But there are new games.
I'm really excited about this game. It's a game called Small Samurai Empires. Kind of, Andy, like you have a soft spot for pirate games. I've always had a soft spot for samurais. It intrigued me ever since I was little. I loved my old samurai movies. A lot of it goes back to my comic book days. Early Wolverine, fought the Hand quite a bit, and the Silver Samurai. Small Samurai Empires is an action programming game. It's an area control game, not necessarily my first priority, but area control is not an instant turn-off for me. 2 to 4 players are fighting for control of Japan with their armies of samurais. The game is played over 3 eras, each consisting of 2 rounds. Players return placing their tokens in the 4 regions of Japan. When all players have placed their tokens, they reveal and resolve them one by one. Players recruit samurai's armies, move their armies, conquer provinces, build castles, all in an effort to defend and maintain control of their provinces. At the end of the 3 eras, who scores the most points? Points are determined by the different regions. Whoever has the most points wins. I'm really excited about this game.
Well, I know we have Dune Imperium on this list, which is sitting right next to me, Nathan. That you've
Almost
already-
touching your elbow, yeah.
It is indeed. And it looks like fun.
I'm excited about Dune Imperium.
I was actually looking into this a little bit on the gameplay. Extremely interesting fusion of deck building and worker placement. I'm intrigued to play it. At the end of each round, you have a combat scenario where you're putting cubes in, you're putting soldiers in the combat area. Whoever has the most cubes at the end of the round wins that combat. Everybody's cubes get discarded. It's not an area control, but there is combat, and you don't have to do the combat either. But if you win that combat, typically the winner's going to get a point. Second place gets a water, third place gets spice resource. You have resource management, you have worker placement, you have deck building, and a little bit of conflict. I think it's going to be a fun game to play.
I'm hoping it's going to be really good.
Me too. That's why I'm disappointed every time I see it still in shrink wrap.
Yeah, there's like 20 games there in shrink wrap, so
I know. I was
take
pointing that
2 or
out.
3 of them home, read them. Oh, wait, never mind.
I'll take Dune home.
Do it.
One of the games that spoke out to me out of the newer releases is Danger Park.
I was just looking at the same one.
It kind of reminds me of Ponzi Scheme that we played before. I don't know if it's going to be like that, but just the feeling of playing it. Because the whole idea is that you build this amusement park. Goal is to make as much money as possible as it falls apart around you. I remember playing Ponzi Scheme, actually having, it racked my nerves to play the game.
I feel the same way, yeah.
It was unsustainable. I was forced to make choices that I knew would not work out in the end. I'm actually kind of hoping that this game has some of those same feelings of making money, but at the detriment of the future, because it's just whoever has the most at the end wins. It's not get to the perfect ending or you did it right and so you played safe or whatever. I'm looking forward to that.
I think that Danger Park looks good too. That's one I think Dennis will like. He, for whatever reason, loves the
100%.
amusement park theme. In this one, you're collectively building the amusement. A little different twist to it.
From what I was reading to it, collectively building, but certain things you do will benefit you, but be a detriment to somebody else.
Right.
A good role for you could be a bad role for somebody else.
Yeah, it's not a cooperative game. You're collectively building this park, but you're definitely competing to make the most money and win.
Interesting games draw my attention. If the theme is there, and even the name, the title, I mean, especially if it's a Star Wars, it draws me in. This game, the title of it drew me in, and it's Happy Dim Sum. First thing I think of when I saw it was Sushi Go, 2 to 5 player game where you draw action cards and pass the dim sum in your hand to your friends, trying to help them complete their sets. Once a player completes 3 different sets and the relevant daily special cards are drawn from the deck, that player is eliminated. So the object of the game is not necessarily to collect it, but you're trying to fatten up your friends, right? You're trying to fill them up on the dim sum so that you can survive and be the last person at the table. It kind of reminds me a little bit of cockroach poker, where you're trying to eliminate other players. For some reason, this game really excites me. I'm looking forward to this.
This sounds like a fast-paced game.
Yeah, and this is a 2 to 5 player game, and it's 15 to 30 minutes.
So Maglev Metro really looks quite good to me. You're upgrading the subway systems in New York or Berlin or both so that they will deliver robots and people quicker. Efficiency is your key to success in this pick up and deliver, tile laying, engine building game. All of those are mechanics that I like. Transparent tiles will allow your route to overlap your opponent's tracks, winding you along from station to station. The robots will efficiently upgrade and adjust your abilities. By the end of the game board has morphed into a modern subway map. Looks pretty cool to me.
I love how you have the little rail cars. Those look fun. So I'm supposed to be getting Sleeping Gods Kickstarter this month.
Oh, good. I forgot that you had backed that.
Yeah, that means it should be hitting stores here sometime soon, too. And so the designer is Ryan Lockett's, the same designer that did Near and Far and Above and Below. Really enjoyed both of those games, so I'm looking forward to getting this one. Everything I've played that Ryan has done has been absolutely awesome. I would imagine, since fulfillment has started for that, hopefully being seen in stores, or plenty of websites out there that you can get Kickstarters from if you're interested in the Kickstarter version of Ryan's new game, Sleeping Gods. But yeah, that one should be coming out here fairly quickly.
So another one that's new to us that's ready to play, and guess what? It's another campaign game. Quite a simple game by one of my favorite designers, Rainer Knizia, and that's My City. Fairly quick-paced games, and you play a set of 3 games in each chapter, building cities. You're trying to build over the rocks, the rough terrain in your area, and 4 points for the number of trees. Then your game board is going to evolve over the series of gameplays. And I'm really looking forward to getting that to our table.
30-minute playtime. That's great.
Playing the whole chapter is less than 90 minutes, or right at that 90 minute. My City.
So that is our news for January of 2021. Lots of games that we talked about, lots of games we've played. We talked about a few new games coming out. Let us know if there's anything that we've missed or anything you've had fun playing over the holiday. And let us know on Meeple Nation Off Air.
We just ran out of time, right? A lot of stuff that we didn't get to.
We got distracted by pandemic.
I'm sitting right here, Luke.
Until next time, Nathan will still be talking about pandemic.
I could be. We'll see you at the game table.